वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ गं गणपतये नमः। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ
या देवी सर्वभूतेषु निद्रारूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। या देवी सर्वभूतेषु निद्रारूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। या देवी सर्वभूतेषु निद्रारूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। ॐ
Namaste and welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam. In today's class, we will go to the next 2 petals and complete this Avarna. So let us begin earnestly with a sense of deep gratitude and humility. Thank you all for joining in. As always, it's our greatest delight to have you. And in this virtual space, take time to lift our minds above the mundane activities of our everyday life and breathe into these higher dimensions, opening our hearts and minds to this greater awareness of these divine Shaktis that reside within us, and behave as if they are very ordinary emotions. So in the last class, we learned about the Ananga Rekha, the infinite line. And then we also touched upon the Ananga Vegini, the infinite river. Everything in this petal opens your minds to infinity. In this Avarna, not this petal, this Avarna, in other words, this sheath, this particular gate, as we call it, the third gate, it opens your mind to the concept of infinity. It's almost like in the Gayatri, you have Om Bhur Bhuvas Suha. And after Suha, you have Janaha Maha, Bhur Bhuvas, Om Bhuhu, Om Bhuva, Om Suva, Om Maha, Om Janaha, Om Tapaha, Om Satyam. You have all the other worlds as well. But after Suha, mind, body, and then spirit opens to all the other lokas. And so the third Avarna is very symbolic in the sense it has 8 petals, and each of these petals open our minds. When I say open our mind, it actually is, in a sense, it's opening your heart, you know. I'm not getting too technical about this, because the mind, like I said in the last class, is limited to the senses. So when the mind opens, means it gives up, literally it surrenders. That's what we mean by surrender the mind. You surrender the thinking faculty, because the mind cannot reach there. It has a glimpse, it has an idea of that infinite dot at the end of the highway, at the end of the parallel line seem to meet, and the mind believes it meets. It has an idea that there is infinity. But when it goes to that point of infinity only seems further away. So it is not in the capacity of the mind to actually comprehend it. And therefore the mind opens and gives room for the heart. In other words, through intuition, the buddhi takes over. The Raja, the swan takes over. And that through intuition, through greater intelligence, a higher intelligence comes and awakens and helps us comprehend these concepts. So Ananga Vegini, we saw, was how there is infinite river. The concept of the river is infinite. The concept of energy is infinite. There is no end to this energy. In our sadhana, in our practice, in our spirituality, we should never give room to this idea that somehow the energy is low, or the energy is high, or the energy is depleting. Physical energies, yes. Sometimes mental energies, yes, we feel like that. But the spiritual energy is just there. Has always been there, will be there, and forever will be there. Never depletes. Because it's Ananga. It simply circulates in the cosmos, waiting for us to consume it as much as we want, because it's infinite in its nature. So we touched upon this because we took the analogy of the river that merges into the ocean, and once again the ocean evaporates and goes up into the clouds and comes back down as snow and as rain. And once again, the river continues to flow. So the river never, in the analogy of the river, it never runs dry. And though the river is still a river, the water is never the same. The water is continuously fresh. And therefore, this infinite energy is fresh every moment. Every spiritual moment is a divine moment. That's why being mindful, being in the present, is very beautiful, because every moment that we spend in divine contemplation is never the same. It's never the same meditation. Even though you do the same techniques, you choose the same time every day, you just sit in the same pose every day, but the meditation that you experience can never be the same every day. You know that. It's an everyday experience. So it's like going to the river. You go to the river bank, it's the same distance from your home, you walk the same distance every day, you may wear the same clothes every day, you may go at the same time every day, at sunset or sunrise or midday, whenever, or once a week on a Sunday. Everything seems to be exactly the same. However, when you go there, that water that you saw the last time is not the water that you're seeing now. It is a new aspect of the river. And that's why you and I can sit on a bank of a river and just watching the river, excuse me, watching the river entrains your mind. It's very hypnotic. The sound of the river is one, which begins to entrain the brain into that pattern, the alpha pattern, and to a little extent the beta waves as well, because there is focus in that sound. It's not like the sound of the waves. The river sound is different. But in addition to that, just watching it continuously flow by, that flow seems to be infinite in nature. And that watching that infinite flow begins to hypnotize your mind, and your mind becomes calm, because you're not watching the same thing. When we talk about boredom in meditation, when we talk about, oh, the same old japam, how long can I do the same old name again and again and again? The mind is getting bored. That is because the mind cannot taste this. The mind will give up. So the mind's resistance is normal. Don't fight with the mind. Don't expect the mind to cooperate. The mind cannot cooperate. So you just say, all right, mind, you keep resisting. You to keep doing your job. I'm going to, because I'm not you, you are a small part of me. I'm going to awaken the intellect and tune into this infinite nature. And this moment is very different from the last moment. This today is a different practice from yesterday and day before yesterday. That's why we do the same asanas every time you practice yoga for the most part, with some variations. But then what happens is the experience is never the same. That's the beauty of these disciplined spiritual practices. So Ananga Vegini, the river, reminds you of that. The river seems to be the same, and yet the water is never the same again. That water which once passes by your eyes in a fraction of a moment can never come back to you, right? It comes in other forms, but that particular combination at that particular moment never repeats itself. That is the beauty of it, and therefore there is infinity in the river. Some of these points are worth meditating upon. All right. And then we come to the next two, because we have completed 6. And this is Anangankusha. As with all these words, there are 2 of them, Ananga, and then follows the adjective describing what that Ananga is. So Ananga is infinite. We should know it by now. Ankusha. Ankusha. Ankusha is popularly known as an elephant hook or a goad, G-O-A-D. I hope I'm saying it correctly. Not God, goad. It is, it's not a weapon. A weapon is probably not the right word, but it is a tool. Let's call it a tool, an instrument or a tool by which the mahut or the elephant, what's that? Elephant trainer. Okay, thanks, Maya. Elephant trainer trains the elephant to go in a particular path or not to go in a particular path. The elephant is so huge and so strong. Oftentimes, thankfully, it doesn't know its own strength, so it becomes tame very easily. But the elephant has to be guided onto the path in the temples and so on. And so the rider uses this Ankusha and gently pokes it at its most delicate spot, at its most sensitive spot, behind the ear, I believe. It's a very sensitive spot for the elephant. So he uses the goad to poke it a little bit, mainly because he can't reach all the way. Sometimes these elephant trainers, I've seen them myself, they use their toes and poke behind the ear. And so the elephant feels the prick and then begins to move in that particular direction. If he wants him to go left or right, he does that. It's very similar to reining in a horse, if you will, and if you pull the right side, the horse turns right, and if you go left, the horse turns left. I have not ridden horses, maybe once or twice, just for the fun of it. So I'm not an expert in that, but I think that's how they ride a horse. It's pretty common sense, I would think. But since you can't rein an elephant, you use this Ankusha. Now, this has been a practice in the elephant circles for centuries, okay? So the poets, the philosophers, they have taken not only elephant as a symbol for many reasons, but they have taken these instruments that are used to goad the elephant and so on, also as an analogy, a symbolic reference to the divine energies within us. So having understood what this Ankusha means, Ankusha is a very beautiful word in Sanskrit, and goad or hook is the English translation, I believe. And therefore, having understood the literal meaning, let us now begin to understand what kind of Ankusha and why is it infinite. Now, I want to draw your attention to Lalita Sahasranama. Lalita Sahasranama is the 1,000 names. In the Sri Chakra here, we are studying 182 names as part of the Sri Chakra. But the Devi that we go to the end, at the very end, the Rajarajeshwari, the Queen of Queens, who sits right in the center, the Mahashakti principle, the supreme energy of everything in this universe and in all dimensions, who's there in that atom, in that bindu, right in the center. We will come to her at the very end. And so she has 1,000 names describing. So meditation on such beautiful principles are done with 300 names. There is Trishati, there is 1,000 names, because it takes so much time to even get your mind close to this vast concept. And therefore 1,000 names. It's the story of Lalita Sahasranama goes where Agastya, one of the divine rishis, a great Mahayogi himself, is given this chant and says, share this. And the goddesses of speech compose this hymn. And so in the 1,000 names, that the word is never repeated. In the description of Lalita, not a single word or a name is repeated again. So there are very great marvels in that poetic composition, and therefore it's attributed to the goddesses of speech themselves. All right. Now, why did I refer to that? Because in Lalita Sahasranama, right in the very beginning, they begin to describe Lalita. Shri Mata, Shri Maharagni, Srimat Simhasaneshwari, Chitagni Kunda Sambhuta, Devakarya Samudhyata. They say this Shri Mata, this mother of the universe, Om Shri Matre Namaha, we say, right? It comes from that very first syllable of Lalita Sahasranama. That's why that mantra is extremely powerful. So unlike today, where you keep the best thing for the last, in those times, they would put the best thing right there for you to take it. So, Sri Mata, Sri Maharagni, the queen, Srimat Simhasaneshwari, the one who sits on the throne of lions and so on. And its description comes, and she arises out of the fire of consciousness. She comes from the fire of consciousness. Chit Agni, from the Chitta, the Agni of the Chitta, she arises. Chitagni Kunda Sambhuta, Devakarya Samudhyata, for the divine forces, to activate the divine energy within us, to awaken us, she arises from the Chitta. What a beautiful poem, right in the beginning. So, in that, this is the first 2 lines, and the next 2 lines will come to this Ankusha. So, I'm not going to chant all of those 1,000 names. So, Sri Mata, Sri Maharagni, Srimat Simhasaneshwari, Chitagni Kunda Sambhuta, Devakarya Samudhyata, Udyadbhanu Sahasrava, like the early morning sun filling the sky, Chaturbahu Samanvita. She comes out of that fire, how? With 4 hands. So the hands are described. At some point, if the context prevails, we will come to why is it that she didn't come out first with the face. First, the hands are coming out of that fire. Chitagni Kunda Sambhuta, Devakarya Samudhyata, Udyadbhanu Sahasrava, like 1,000 suns, rising suns, as a splendor fills, Chaturbahu Samanvita. 4 hands come out of that fire first. And then there is a description of what these 4 hands are. See how beautifully this is coming. So it's not only poetic, but very, very deep symbolism. In that, one of the 4 hands, this is what is happening. Raga Swarupa Pashadhya Krodankara Kushojvala. Ankushojvala. Krodakara Ankushojvala. So there is Ankusha in one hand. Ankusha, we're coming across this name there. In one of the hands, she holds Ankusha. The other hand, she is holding a Pasha. We'll come to that as well. Right? So right now you see in the picture here above, you see in our altar, you have the Devi. So Maya, can you we'll show a close-up of the Ankusha. So thank you. So this is great. So this is the close-up of the Ankusha. She has many hands, 4 hands, right? Look at the one that is behind, the right hand that is behind, that is holding. It's a sculptor's idea of Ankusha. She holds an Ankusha in that hand. So on the right hand, she is holding Ankusha. Now the other side, if you look at the other camera from the other side, can we switch to the other one? Okay, great. Now on the left hand, she is holding what is called the Pasha. We'll come to that in a little bit. So that is the two back hands, if you will. One is holding the elephant gourd. So there are only two deities that hold this predominantly. I mean, there are many deities who hold this, but predominantly the two major deities that hold Pasha and the Ankusha are Ganesha and his mother Devi. So Devi holds Pasha and Ankusha in her back two hands. In the front two hands, what she holds. So she has held Krodakara Ankushojwala, Manorupekshu Kodanda. In the front hand, she holds Manorupekshu Kodanda. She's holding a sugar cane in the one hand. You see a long stem in her left hand in the front. She's holding a sugar cane. Sugar cane represents the sweetness of the mind. She holds our mind and all the emotions. And that sugar cane has five little stems representing our five senses. So she's holding that. And in the right hand, she's holding Pancha Tanmatra Sayaka, the five fundamental elements: space, air, fire, water, and earth. The Tanmatras are not these. That's why I paused. I have to correct myself. Pancha Tanmatra is sound, which is space, eventually becomes space. But behind space, what is the origin of space? Sound, vibration. So she holds sound. That is one of the five elements she holds in her hand. Sound. Behind air, what is the one that gives origin to that? It is touch. Touch is an energy. Just like sound is an energy, touch is an energy. Don't think of touch only by you and me touching each other, but touch is a divine cosmic energy which we experience through skin and through Vayu and so on. So sound, touch, then you have sight. Sight is an energy which is expressed through our eyes. Taste is an energy that is expressed through our tongue. And smell, Gandha. So Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, and Gandha. These are the five Tanmatras. They exist. They come out of the Supreme Purusha. Right? If you attended one of the earlier Kaivalya Marga classes, we talked about in Sankhya and all of that. So I'm not going to get into all these details. I just wanted to explain the four hands because we're going to go to one or two of those hands. Right? You see how much of depth is there in this learning. This is not blind belief. This is not some caveman who decided to worship a goddess and decided to please her. This was deep thinking by philosophers, by enlightened beings who said, all right, let's symbolize these things so that it's easier for people to understand. But what did we do? We created a goddess and we focused on giving her prasadam to eat, and everything that we do, we started giving her human emotions, and we kind of missed this whole symbolism and the beauty of what she represents. So through these symbols, through this picture, as Baba would say, take the picture to God. Don't bring God into the picture. Take the picture to God. In other words, through the symbolism, let's open our hearts and minds and understand the depth of this cosmic energy that we call, or that we adore, that we worship as the Divine Mother. How cosmic that is, right? So don't limit that by ascribing human emotions. There is no Devi sitting there to get angry with you because you didn't polish the Sri Chakra, or the Sri Chakra slightly turned different directions. None of that. None of that, really. That's all our own inbuilt fear that has somehow been implanted in us. Remove all those incepted belief systems, things which are planted in your mind. Remove all of that. These are all pure energies waiting to serve. And this energy, Devi's energy, is rises in our chitta with these four hands, and it has all these energies already there. So in this particular Avarna, we are focusing in the Sri Chakra. We are focusing on, because we already did the five Tanmatras in the last petals. We have touched upon these things, right? So in this Avarna, we are touching upon Ankusha, the gourd that she holds in her back hand. All right. So this nature of Ankusha that she is holding It is Krodakara Ankushojvala. Krodakara Ankushojvala. She is that splendor. There is splendor in that Ankusha. But there is anger. You probably didn't expect that. Krodakara Ankushojvala. So in Lalita Sahasrana, I'm borrowing that because we can't just go very free in our description, because we have a brilliant text like the Lalita Sahasranama to fall back upon when we want to understand more in detail. So when Ankusha came, the only source I could go to, how Devi and Ankusha, where is the description? It is there in Lalita Sahasranama. So let's go to Lalita Sahasranama. What kind of Ankusha has she got? She's got the Ankusha, and that represents anger. Now, the word anger perhaps has a negative connotations only because we have been taught and we tell ourselves being angry is bad and so on and so forth, which is right. At one level, it is bad. Why? Because you and I get angry when our desires are not met, right? A simple thing in psychology, they will say anger is due to frustration. Frustration comes when your desires don't meet the expectations, or they don't meet their fruition. You get frustrated. Right? You want to leave home at a particular time, and suddenly the car doesn't start at that time. And so your expectation is thwarted, and therefore you're frustrated. You don't know what to do. You have to call AAA, or you have to call somebody to come and check the car. Now you don't know what's going on with the car. So all of that makes you angry. That kind of anger leads to stress, and it has negative reactions. Yes, so that level where our expectations, you're all sitting for a movie, ready to watch a movie, and suddenly the power goes off. Oh, everybody's so upset and angry, right? So things like that, little things like that, bigger desires like that, when it's not met, we get angry. When something wonderful is going to happen is suddenly snatched away right in front of our eyes, we get angry with God. And then we say, okay, none of this works, and so on and so forth. And so anger has many levels. In all of these, when anger is because of our frustrations, because of our desires not meeting their objective and therefore leading to anger, that kind of anger is a very low level anger, and that pulls us down. Like every energy, anger energy also has the most powerful part of it, the beautiful part of it, the part of it that awakens us. Now, one way that you and I can relate to this is in a game. You want to motivate your child. He's going to play soccer. You want to motivate your child. Okay, I'm just giving an example. I mean, I don't have children. I haven't done this. But I'm thinking of how we can relate to something where anger can be used for positive, productive purposes. And so this comes to my mind. A simple thing that goes with the flow of a satsang like this. So a child is shy, he's nervous, and what do you tell him? You shake him and tell him, you can do it. Come on, you can do it. Be bold, go for it. And then he gets into that spirit, says, yes, mom, I will do it. That is anger. Excuse me. That is a form of anger. He says, no, enough. I don't want this limitations anymore. I'm not going to be afraid anymore. I am going ahead and I'm going to do this. Now, this is an example of that small child. And you say, yes, yes, go for it. Come on. And he goes in with full determination. So determination, a sense of discipline, all of that needs dedication, needs this positive element of anger. Think about it. It needs this positive element of anger. Anger spurs you to action. Anger awakens you. If that child was going to a game and and he's already scared, he's already nervous, maybe a public speaking thing or a game or a competition of some sort, and you're telling him, it's okay, relax, be calm, he's going to get more. Say, come on, it's all right. You can wake up. This is not the time to be afraid. Go for it. And then that will give him a chance to go forward and act. Now, this is what Krishna did to Arjuna. Why did I get this idea? Because Krishna did this to Arjuna. Arjuna in the battlefield gets confused. What am I fighting this war for? And so on. Again, stick to the analogy. Don't take it literally and think about war and killing and all of that. Let's stick to the analogy. So a warrior is afraid to do his duty at that moment. Krishna is listening. For the first 1 chapter and 11 verses of the next chapter, he is listening. And Arjuna is full of, oh me, poor me, I don't want all this, I am this, I am that, I'm confused, I have done all this, I don't want to believe in this, I want to sacrifice, isn't that good? And he is displaying all his idea of good and bad and moral and values and all of that to justify that he doesn't want to fight. Like that 5-year-old or a 10-year-old who's afraid to go and play the soccer match. So what do you think Krishna does? Akirtikaram Arjuna, Anarya Ajishtam Akirtikaram. So he says, when he in his first couple of sentences, when he decides to speak to Arjuna, he lashes at him. He wakes him up, he shakes him, he's angry, and he goads him with that Ankusha. Not literally, but his words are powerful. And there is an anger. Again, quote unquote anger. And he brings Arjuna, wakes him up from that stupor that Arjuna has got himself into. You and I have got ourselves into this kind of a stupor. We have our own ideas of good and bad. We have built our own little system of who is good and who is bad, and we are constantly having these ups and downs, white and black and good and bad, and all of these gunas and all of these qualities. And so we have created a prison, a complex prison wall in our mind. And we are living in that prison. And we justify also why we are. Oh, I am just a human being. It's okay for me. I don't know when God is there to take care of me. And we kind of justify why I'm small. I'm going to be in this prison wall. I am not going to do anything. There is one God who will somehow rescue me from this. We have created that fantasy story because our mind can be justified to stay where we are. That's our comfort zone. We have created that comfort zone. Some of us fool ourselves thinking that is devotion. That is not, right? Hanuman didn't think like that. That's why he jumped the ocean. He didn't say, who am I to jump the ocean? Rama will take care of me. Oh, who am I to do that? He said, I will jump the ocean. I can fly the earth around 3-4 times. And Jambavan wakes him up. Hanuman, know who you are. Again, that Hanuman wakes up with that anger in him. Yes, I can do this. And then he goes for it, right? So that is devotion. So there is an element of power in that. So when you don't get it on your own, then the mother goads you. Like the elephant goads, the Mahut goads the elephant. She takes the Ankusha and pushes you in that direction. Wake up, child. Wake up, wake up. My father would wake us up. My father and my uncle, we lived in a joint family. My sisters are listening to this, they'll recollect. Because my father would get up at 4:30 or 4 in the morning for puja. And so everybody has to get up, because we used to get up and we would go to learn yoga and stuff like that. So the whole house has to be swept and mopped, and 9 people living in 2 rooms, everybody's up. Anyway, but how is that waking happening? He will roll his towel, because he's just finished a shower, he comes out, he's rolled up a towel and he beats us on the back. Day, day. And that's how we were woken up. This Ankusha was my father's way of waking us up, because otherwise we were not going to get up. We were what, 10, 11, 12, I guess, at age. So the only way to wake us up was through Ankusha. Now Maya had a different experience. I was surprised when she told me her mother would wake her up saying, gentle child, wake up to the beautiful day. The flowers are waiting and the fairies are waiting. I was like, wait, what? When did this happen? Anyway, so Ankusha is awakening us. This divine mother awakens us with the Ankusha. And so when we feel the pain of a prod behind our ears, or like, you see, why Ankusha again? Because the Mahut, understand the symbolism. The Mahut, in order to make the elephant obey him, pricks the elephant at the most sensitive spot. at the weakest spot of the elephant. So when you need to be awakened, the universal intelligence, guess where? Where will she prod you? She will prod you in your weak spot. Your weak spot may not be my weak spot, right? Who's that weak spot, if it's prod, then the awakening happens. You're like, oh gosh, what was I doing? What was I thinking? That awakening is the most brilliant happening, and that happens with this. That prodding is not comfortable, but that prodding is required. So when we have a loss, when we have something that we don't expect in our life, something that seems to be bizarrely out of our control, take a moment to ponder whether the universe is rudely awakening you to something more divine. I say rudely because there is no other word to explain. Sometimes it is a rude awakening, but that awakening is important. That rude awakening is very important. Otherwise, we are caught in that, refusing to step out of that belief system. We don't even know we are caught in that belief system. We don't even know we are doing something completely against our very core principle, which we might regret much later. We don't know at that point, and therefore we need that awakening to happen. When that awakening happens, you look back and say, thank God, what is this? This is what it was. At some point when the context prevails, I'll share more about this. But there were such rude awakenings in our lives for which I am so, so very grateful. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking to you about this concept without having gone through that kind of awakenings. And so it's very, very important. And it is, your heart only fills with gratitude, not at that point, but very soon, if only you begin to take a moment and say, universe, what is this? What are you trying to teach me? I'm ready to learn. And then the learning comes. So Devi uses Ankusha. When I was in my early days with Baba, my first couple of years or so, after spending some time in his room and so on, I became from just being merely curious to getting to admire him. I became very attached to him. I became like a quote-unquote fan of Sai Baba. And everything that I wanted to be there with him. I wanted him to sign my pictures. I wanted to be there close to him, sit with him, talk with him. I was kind of infatuated, if you will, as a young boy. Just this is everything. My God, what am I doing? He's everything. And so to a point that it became very uncomfortable for him. And he tried to explain to me in many ways, don't, stop this. This is not how you're going to find God. This is not spirituality. This is going wrong direction. No, this is not how it should be. It just didn't settle. I remember one 45 minutes to an hour session where he had, my classmates, some of them may remember this, I was there and he spent almost an hour chiding me and telling them what a stupid example I am and how I've completely misunderstood devotion and everything. And that was a few months before the convocation. So and the convocation, graduation ceremony and all of that. So he really completely broke my heart into pieces, literally. But then came that awakening. Then if this is not devotion, if this is not what Baba wants, what does he want? What is that? What is that deeper connection I'm looking for? And then a whole different divine understanding of a deeper relationship, of the idea of finding Guru within, and all of that began to happen. But if he had not used this Ankusha and poked me at that point, I would have never got it, right? That was just the beginning, and that it goes on in life. So remember, when we are in this fold of divinity, there are times when there's rude awakenings happen. And when that happens, know that there is Ankusha. This awakening will never end, and therefore there is, I call it awakening, but you can also call it prodding. I don't like the word prodding because I think it is to awaken you. And when you awaken to a particular level, then there is divine revelations, there is learning. Once you are learned, once you are practiced, once you are assimilated, then the next awakening happens. And not every time there is going to be a loss or a sacrifice or something like that. So don't get discouraged by this idea, but know that Devi is doing it, right? She who controls the entire universe, she is the one who is awakening you at the right time. She will do it. If you don't have the energy, it won't come. If you have the strength, only when you have the strength, the learning, and you're ready for it, will the universe present that situation to you. Otherwise, it will not even happen. So it is, and that awakening is infinite. It never ends. You might say, but wait a minute, once I get enlightened, what happens? Then there is a wrong concept of enlightenment. Enlightenment is not a static goal. It is the ability, the willingness, and the knowing and the awareness that that expansion of consciousness, the learning, will never end and never cease. That is enlightenment. And the learning goes on. The moment you say this is what enlightenment is, myself is infinite, and therefore when can I say I have understood myself? If I say I've understood myself, I am enlightened, I know the self, I know the Brahman, then once you say I know something, then that knowing limits the idea of Brahman. When you're constantly knowing, in a state of knowing, in a state of learning, in a state of expanding, enlightenment is there. So that awakening, that constant growing, that constant learning happens when the Divine Mother in us awakens the Shakti in us. So you get self-motivated. Within you, this Ankusha will keep prodding you. This is not enough. Go ahead. More progress, more progress. And you will be motivated, self-motivation. Motivation. That is the energy that Ankusha represents. And this, because the self is infinite, the learning is infinite, the journey is infinite. And in that journey, in that infinity lies everything. So Ananka Ankusha. Ankusha is infinite. What a beautiful concept. Then comes the last one. Ananga Malini. Ananga Malini. Malini. Mala means garland. Right? Most of you who know, if you're from India, you would know this word very easy. It's there in Hindi, it's in Sanskrit, it's in Tamil and Malay. Right? In many South Indian languages, the word doesn't change much. Mala. Malini is one who adorns you with the garland or one who's adorned with the garland. You can take it both ways, depending on how you want to use it. She adorns you with a garland. She adorns herself with the garland, or she is adorned with the garland. Right? That garland could be in a hand, that garland could be in a neck, or she could put the garland on you. So the idea is adorns with garland. That's what is said here. Ananga Malini. So Ananga Ankusha we understood. What is this Ananga Malini? What is this garland that in this particular Sri Chakra, in meditation and contemplation, that is being referred to? Since this is a very intense meditative practice, contemplative practice, words are very carefully chosen. Whenever there is a mention of Ankusha, which we just saw, in Vedanta, in rituals especially, that always is paired with another word called Pasha, Pasha Ankusha. So in the Lalita Sahasranama, when we go back to the Lalita Sahasranama, she says, the poet says, Raga Swarupa Pashadhya Krodakara Ankushojvala. So we saw Krodha. Krodha is anger. Ankusha, we saw was Ankusha. Krodakara Ankushojvala. It's lighting. It's splendorously lit by this angry gourd that she holds. Okay? So that is one side. There is power in that. Awakening power. Raga Swarupa Pashadhya. So because there is a poetry there, and there is space for words, there is beauty, it is explained beautifully, that on the other hand, she holds a rope in her hand. Right? Can we go back to that picture and go to the close-up shot? The other side, Pasha. All right, so you can see on the back hand, she is holding something like a rope. It is circular in nature. She is holding it. Now, technically, that is called a noose. But I'm not a big fan of that English word, noose, for some reason. a noose around the neck seems too stifling. I've tried weeks and months to meditate and try to redefine it in my head. Then I said, why am I bothered? Pasha is a nice word. And anyway, so because that Pasha is not just Pasha, it's Raga Swarupa Pashatya. So that rope that she has in her hand is popularly known in Lalita Sahasranama as Raga Swarupa Pasha. What is Raga Swarupa? Raga is, she is very attached to you. She wants you. She loves you. In other words, she is the very essence of who you and I are, right? That is, the essence of us is Shakti. Shiva is meditation. Shiva is the formless. But in all of this creation is the very essence of all this creation, including you and me, is Shakti, principle, is the mother. And so my very essence is the mother. How can she be away from me? In other words, she wants to draw me into herself. So she puts a rope around you and pulls you towards her. That rope is called Raga Swarupa. Out of love, she puts a rope around you and drags you towards her. Right? You do it out of love and holds you safe for safety and guides you. So she has on the one hand, she's prodding you. On the other hand, she's guiding you. She's holding you back. So when she prods you, you don't go too far out. You know, we have had 2 dogs. We have had more than 2 dogs, but in US we had 2 dogs. Both are very big dogs. And we put leash on them and take them on the road. So why do we put a leash? Because we don't like them? No, we love them. We want them to go out, but we want them to be safe, not stray too away from us, that they can't come back or get into go and smell somewhere and get a skunk spray on them and things like that. So we love them, and therefore we use a pasha. We put a collar around the neck and keep it tight. When we want to, we hold them and pull them back because we love them. That is what we want. We want our children to call us back from our school at a particular time. Please call back when you're leaving school. Please let me know where you are. That pasha today is a cell phone, right? We use a cell phone as a garland around our children. That's so that they are in touch with us, with our spouse, with our loved ones. We use that, right? Like a lasso. A lasso is also a good word, around the neck. So here in Sri Vidya, in Sri Chakra, in Devi Khadgamala, instead of using the word Pasha, they use the word Garland. Because I said it's because it's a meditative practice. The word Garland is so beautiful. You know, in marriage, we create a bondage. And that is expressed by what? By putting garland on each other. I am putting a garland around you. You put a garland around me. And so in that garland, in India especially, we create that bondage. That pasha, right? Raga Swarupa Pashatya, a bondage of love, of attachment. So here, this attachment is not with worldly things. This is with the mother. She keeps you attached to herself. Remember, she is the one who's putting the garland around. She holds a garland in her hand, which is nothing else but the pasha. But in Sri Chakra, in this, how it's revealed to me is the way I meditate upon it. Is this Malini is Pasha. Why? Because Ankusha is there, the Pasha follows that normally. I would think that would be incomplete if there was Ananga Ankusha and Ananga Pasha. So instead of saying Ananga Pasha, which didn't perhaps have a touch to it of meditation or poetry or sound didn't match, I don't know. But Ananga Malini sounds beautiful. So she holds, on the other hand, she holds this garland that she puts around us. She holds us back. So on the one hand, she prods you. On the other hand, she holds you back. I was telling you about how Baba chided me so much in that time. And after chiding me, completely cut me off. Didn't speak to me, didn't look at me, just ignored as if I didn't exist. It's like I'm fed up of him doing this extreme attachment with me. I'm fed up. It was almost like that. So I was completely heartbroken. And then I mentioned it was a few months before convocation, and those words came out because of what happened. And those few months were given to me for deep introspection, and I began to learn the lesson. I began to understand, and all of that happened. And when the convocation came, very beautifully, Swami sent word for me. On the convocation day, till then he had not spoken to me. Dave asked him to come behind the stage. I went behind the stage. I stood, not knowing what was Swami wanting, because the convocation is a very busy time. He's going to come, give a speech and go. Where is the time for any personal interaction? My mind was bizarre. I couldn't even understand what it was. And then my name was called and he gave me a medal for yoga. So he put that garland. So on the one side, he prods you. It seems rude. It seems, oh gosh, why are you testing me? It's painful. Don't do this to me. Teach me properly and all of that. The ego is shattered. But then he doesn't just sit back. When the time is appropriate, he puts a garland. He says, come. Come. And so when I stood next to him in that photograph, that medal thing, I had it at one point. I don't have that photograph. It's a black and white. This is so long back. And so when I stood with him, he said, don't put a castor oil face. He murmured, don't put a castor oil face. And he actually is a yogi, don't put a castor oil face. I was suddenly from being, from South Pole, if you will, my consciousness shot up to the North Pole. So Raga and Pashadya, so adorns with the garland. Ananga Malini. So the Divine Mother just doesn't only prod you. If you think it's only happening to you and only prodding first, that's because we are resisting it. So till we resist it, till we wouldn't get up from our bed, my father's towel would come and keep hitting on our back. I can't keep complaining. I have to awaken, that's all. There is no choice. Once you awaken, the prodding stops. The beating of the towel on your back stops. And then she puts the garland and says, all right, now that you got it, come close to me. I'll show you yet another beautiful dimension. Expose you to another beautiful truth in this life. And then you make peace with that truth. You begin to enjoy that. And then when the time comes, she will prod you again, wake you up again, only to put another garland around your neck. So this Ananga Ankusha and Ananga Malini, Ananga, infinite garlanding takes place, infinite prodding takes place. And that journey between us and our divine energy is never ending. And thus you have Ananga Malini. Ananga Malini. She holds a garland, but that garland is for you. She puts the garland around your neck. She bonds herself with you and pulls you towards her, towards the higher dimensions that she comes from, to open your heart and mind to greater dimensions, to greater riches, so that one day she will absorb all of these Shaktis within herself and absorb herself into Shiva consciousness. That is the game of life. They are playing. You and I are just there as part of that consciousness. The I in you and the I in me, the Sundar in me or the Maya in my wife, none of that is of any consequence. It is the Shakti playing a drama, and she will unfold and take it. It is a chance given to these little eyes that is also created by her to enjoy that journey. Enjoy it and ride the wave. Ride on into joy. Ride on, ride on, ride on into joy. Let us bring this satsang to an end with Om Shri Matre Namah chant for a few minutes. And let us take time to contemplate until we have the next satsang on these 8 petals. Meditate on them, contemplate on them, see how they make sense to you. And talk to the inner Shakti within you, the Divine Mother within you. And allow her to open your eyes into greater wisdom. And when this life throws tests at you, instead of resisting, accept it, welcome it. And say, teach me whatever lesson there has to be taught. However bitter the medicine, make sure I eat it, I swallow the medicine. And let me learn this lesson so that I will then be worthy of receiving the garland from you.
Om Shri Matre Namaha. 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 समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु. समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु. समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु.
May all the beings in all the worlds be happy.
जय बोलो पवन सुत हनुमान की जय. सियावर रामचंद्र की जय. सतगुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय. नमः पार्वती पतये हर हर महादेव. ओम शांति शांति शांति.